Tucson, Arizona Territory, the night of March 20th, 1882. Wyatt Earp and four armed men tracked Frank Stilwell through the Southern Pacific rail yard. Stilwell was shot with at least 5 different weapons. The Pima County coroner, Dr. Dexter Lyford, documented the wounds in his inquest report. A single rifle ball through both armpits, passing completely through the body. A second rifle ball through the upper left arm. 1 round of buckshot penetrating the liver, stomach, and abdomen at close range. Powder burns still on the coat. A rifle ball through the right leg, and buckshot breaking the left leg bone. A Tucson diarist named George Hand wrote in his diary that Stilwell was the worst shot-up man I ever saw. The Pima County grand jury indicted Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, Sherman McMasters, and John Johnson for murder. Earp fled Arizona Territory ahead of the warrant. I want to stop there, because that moment, a man who called himself a lawman, fleeing a murder indictment, that's the Wyatt Earp nobody put in the movies. The one in the movies? That came from Stuart Lake. In 1931, Lake published Wyatt Earp, Frontier Marshal. It became a national bestseller. It built the entire modern image of Earp as the incorruptible frontier hero. The problem is what Lake later admitted to his own publisher. He said he felt journalistically justified in inventing the manuscript. Yale historian John MacFarrager, writing in the 2000 S, called the book an imaginative hoax, a fabrication mixed with just enough fact to give it credibility. Lake admitted to fabricating quotes and incidents. He also published the book 2 years after Earp died in 1929, meaning Earp could not contradict a single word of it. So, what does the actual documented record look like? Let's open the case file. In the 1970s, Canadian psychologist Robert D. Hare developed a behavioral assessment tool now known as the Psychopathy Checklist Revised, the PCL-R. It was published in its revised form in 1991 and updated in 2003. It scores 20 personality traits and documented behaviors across 4 factor domains: interpersonal, affective, lifestyle, and antisocial. Each item scores 0, 1, or 2. The maximum is 40 points. A score of 30 or above is the clinical threshold for psychopathy. Here is the critical thing. Hare specified 2 valid input methods for the PCL-R. The first is a direct clinical interview. The second is collateral information, court records, arrest records, documented behaviors, institutional files. That second method is exactly what FBI behavioral analysts use when they build a profile on a historical subject from the documentary record. That's what we're doing here. This is not a posthumous diagnosis of Wyatt Earp. We cannot diagnose a dead man. What we can do, what forensic psychologists actually do, is apply a validated behavioral framework to the documented record and see what it shows. The question is not whether Wyatt Earp was a psychopath. The question is what pattern emerges when you stop reading the legend and start reading the documents. Here is the language from April 1st, 1871 Bill of Information, filed in the U.S. District Court, Western District of Arkansas. Wyatt S. Earp, Ed Kennedy, John Schoen, on the 28th day of March 1871 in the Indian country in said district, did feloniously, willfully steal, take and carry away 2 horses each of the value of $100, the property, goods, and chattels of one William Keyes. That is a federal indictment. Indian Territory was under federal jurisdiction. A grand jury returned that indictment in May 1871. Earp posted a $500 bond, roughly equivalent to 8 months' salary for a working deputy at the time, escaped from the Van Buren, Arkansas jail in early May and disappeared. A warrant was issued and returned unserved on November 21, 1871. Wyatt Earp was a federal fugitive, but this wasn't even the beginning. Weeks earlier, still in Lamar, Missouri, Barton County had filed a $200 civil lawsuit against Earp, alleging he'd collected school fund fees as town constable and kept the money. A second suit followed accusing him of falsifying court documents in a separate collection matter. Earp sold his house and fled Lamar before either hearing. The county constable who replaced him filed an affidavit stating he had good reason to believe that Wyatt S. Earp has absconded or absented himself from his usual place of abode in this state so that the ordinary process of law cannot be processed against him. Embezzlement of public funds, document fraud, federal horse theft, flight from multiple jurisdictions, all of this before the age of 23. Then came Peoria, Illinois. In February 1972, police raided the brothel run by a woman named Jane Haspel. 3 men and 4 women were arrested. The Peoria Daily Transcript reported on May 11, 1972, Wyatt Earp and his brother Morgan Earp were each fined $44.55, and as they had not the money and would not work, they languish in the cold and silent calaboose. That's a news report. Earp was arrested multiple times in the Peoria brothel circuit. He's listed in the 1972 Peoria City Directory as residing at Haspel's address. Moved to Wichita. Municipal records from 1974 to 1976 document a brothel at 12 Douglas Street operating under the names Bessie Earp and Sally Earp. The women paid regular monthly fines, $10 each, on rotation to the Wichita city government. On June 3, 1974, they were raided and charged with keeping a bawdy house. Historian Gary Roberts notes that Wyatt's name does not appear directly in the brothel arrest records. His role is debated. What is documented, he was living at the address and the month he joined the Wichita police force, May 1975, the fines stopped. He was now both the law and the business it was supposed to regulate. Here is where it gets uncomfortable. The interpersonal domain of the PCL-R scores grandiosity, superficial charm, pathological lying, and conning. Lake's 1931 biography attributes to Earp an outsized role in virtually every notable frontier confrontation he was present for. The Ben Thompson incident in Ellsworth, Kansas, is the cleanest example. Lake's version: Earp walks forward alone while every other officer stands frozen, faces down Thompson, and forces him to surrender his weapons. It's a great scene. The Ellsworth Daily Reporter from that exact day, August 15, 1873, doesn't mention Earp at all. The only lawman named is Deputy Sheriff Ed Hogue. Earp didn't just benefit from the mythology. The documentary evidence says he built it. The effective domain scores lack of remorse, shallow affect, and callousness. Wyatt Earp lived 47 years after the Vendetta ride. He gave dozens of interviews, sat with multiple biographers, and dictated extended accounts of his life to Stuart Lake and John Flood. In none of those recorded accounts did he express documented regret for a single killing, not one. When asked about the men killed during the Vendetta ride, his consistent position was that he had carried out justice. He said that in 1882, and he was still saying it in 1928. The lifestyle domain scores irresponsibility, impulsivity, and what Hare specifically terms parasitic behavior, deriving income or material benefit from the activities of others without contributing equivalent labor. It includes brothel income, faro dealing alongside women paying prostitution fines, operating as an enforcer for operations he claimed no official connection to, jumping bail, fleeing hearings, and moving to the next town when the last one became too complicated. The antisocial domain scores poor behavioral controls, criminal versatility, and early behavior problems. Earp's documented record crosses 4 crime categories: embezzlement, document fraud, horse theft, extrajudicial killing across 4 different states and territories over more than a decade. Each jurisdiction received a different version of who he was. That's not bad luck. The PCL-R specifically weights criminal versatility as a distinct factor because it reflects a pattern of persistent rule-breaking that adapts to circumstances rather than emerging from a single explosive failure. Let me be precise about what the vendetta ride actually shows in this context. After Morgan Earp was murdered on March 18, 1882, Wyatt assembled a posse and over 26 days killed multiple men he believed responsible. The Tombstone Daily Nugget, not a Clanton family newsletter, but a functioning territorial newspaper, described the killings as extrajudicial executions. Florentino Cruz, one of the men killed during the ride, was shot as he tried to flee on horseback. Multiple posse members were seen firing from horseback as he ran. That's documented in the newspaper coverage of the time. Earp left Arizona Territory ahead of murder indictments for those killings. His supporters later argued he was carrying out federal warrants. His critics noted that federal warrants authorize arrest, not execution. Let me be precise about what this evidence supports and what it doesn't. The PCL-R requires a living subject and a trained clinician. We cannot score Wyatt Earp. We don't have everything. What we have is a documented behavioral pattern that, mapped to Hare's 4 factor domains, produces a profile no forensic psychologist would dismiss in 5 minutes. The pattern is consistent across multiple jurisdictions, multiple decades, and multiple categories of behavior. That consistency is itself a clinical signal. Casey Teffertiller spent 3 years on his 1997 biography, Wyatt Earp, The Life Behind the Legend, still the most rigorously sourced account, specifically documenting how Lake's fabrications had buried the paper trail. The documents Teffertiller found weren't obscure. The Barton County lawsuit is in the Missouri records. The federal indictment is in the Western District of Arkansas records. The Peoria newspaper coverage is archived. The Wichita Municipal Fine records are archived. None of this was hidden. It just didn't fit the story anyone wanted to sell. Here's what the case file actually shows. Wyatt Earp was a man who consistently operated outside legal and ethical constraints while cultivating a public image of integrity. He understood how to perform authority. He was strategically compliant with the law when it served him and strategically defiant when it didn't. The frontier rewarded exactly that profile, and he understood the frontier well enough to know it. That is not a diagnosis. It is also not nothing. Stuart Lake, in his 1931 biography, called Earp the greatest gunfighting marshal the Old West knew. The April 1, 1871 federal indictment from the Western District of Arkansas uses different language. Did feloniously, willfully steal. Both documents exist. The question is which one you've been shown.